Welcome to another session. My name is Knuzen. I'm a subject matter expert at Knuzen Sap Hcm Security. Knuzen Sap Hcm Security were founded in 2006, and our main focus is the security within Sap Hcm. You'll be able to find more information about us on www.knuzen.com. So let's get started with the presentation. We'll have to go through some thoughts, and you will have to take some decisions when you're setting up the structural authorizations. There are different kind of business needs which will require structural authorizations. Some of those are, for example, the HR partners who needs access to those employees they are responsible for. It could also be project managers who needs access to those employees who have entered or logged time on their projects. It could also be line managers who needs access to their employees, such perhaps even except from trainees. And then we could also have instructors who needs access to those learners who is participating on their courses. So all those kinds of business needs can be solved by structural authorizations. When we are using the structural authorization, they will be used in conjunction with some authorization objects. And the most common one is the P-Org in Con. This is the context-specific authorization objects for HR, which is used today. And then we have PHAP-Doc, the authorization object for appraisal documents, for performance appraisals. But let's show you the P-Org in Con in a derived row. So here we have a derived row. I've opened up the P-Org in Con object here, and you can see we have some organizational levels like personal area, and then we also have the structural profiles here, which has been created as an organizational level because it tells you where I have access. And you see we can find it among all the structural profiles we have. And then you can select it. This one, in this case, we have this structural profile set up as an organizational level together with personal areas. It could also be with employee subgroups. And the same goes for the PHAP-Doc setup. So let's go back to the presentation. We have some concepts which we are using when we're setting up the structural authorizations. The first one is the one-to-one principle. This is where you have one business role and one structural profile together. So each time you are having a new business role, you will also create a new structural profile if you need structural access. Then you have the next concept here. This is where you have as few structural profiles as possible. This is where you have one structural profile used by many roles. This one is reusing the structural profiles, and it reduces the amount of structural profiles, which is the benefit from performance point of view, especially for users who have many structural profiles or many business roles. The first one, the one-to-one principle, the most common one, is actually the easiest to maintain in production, because here you have one structural profile per business role, and it's transparent. So you can see that you have a HR partner row, then you will also have a HR partner profile, or you have a learning administrator, you will have a learning administrator profile. Easy to grab. There might also be some considerations and some cons regarding setting up the structural authorizations. One of those, most authorization consultants does not have knowledge about structural authorizations. And the same goes for those in the user administration. So when you're setting up the structural authorizations, please have in mind to set them up together with the PFCD roles so they're easy to handle and maintain in operation. Also, automatic assignment of them would be a benefit, quite advisable. If you have a large amount of structural profiles, it will have a negative impact on your performance. So keep an eye on them and see if there's any merging scenarios that you can come up with, so you can keep the number of structural profiles to a minimum. You will also have to consider in the decision of using structural profiles whether it is used outside of HR, because it might be used also in logistics. It could be used in finance. For finance, it could be travel management. In logistics, it could be for projects where you are assigning an employee responsible for a project. So you have to take those in mind as well. When you're setting up the profiles, then you have two setups for structural profiles. You have the fixed structural profiles and you have the dynamic structural profiles. The fixed structural profiles is where you have root objects, could be in the organizational structure, together with an evaluation path that will drill down in the structure and grant you access to those objects dictated by the evaluation path. You can also use it without any evaluation path, and that will actually be a benefit for the performance. This is typically used for employment handlers, for payroll clerks, for time administrators, those who is handling employees within national borders or regions. The other one is the dynamic structural authorizations, Genius. It makes use of function modules, so you can actually pick up some attributes on the user or from those employees the user is allowed to access. The most common one is the line manager. This is based on a relation, and here you are using the person-user relation maintained in the communication info type 105, and then you can actually grant access to line manager's employees through one structural profile. So don't have to create a structural profile for each manager, just one, and then use the function module, it gets manager assignment. When you're setting up customer relations, because it's also a relation which is used for the manager, then you can create it together with your own function modules. It's absolutely standard, and it works fine. But please consider the maintenance of the relations, because it's a piece of cake to set up those relations, but to stay clean and to maintain them afterwards and perhaps get rid of them, that's another story. And those procedures are often forgotten, unfortunately. So consider if there are other attributes which is on our employees anyhow, which can be used instead of setting up a new relation. That might be worth considering. Then we have the evaluation path, but before I will show you the structural profiles. So we'll have to go to OSP, and here we have the line manager. This is a piece of cake setting up. You can see here I have for root object O, we have an evaluation path, and then we have this function module that makes the trick. So the root object is the ID is empty, and then you will actually just pick up the ID for the line manager. The next one I'm showing you is actually a fixed structural authorization, and this one is having the ID here, and then we have an evaluation path. It will go directly into the organizational structure and then use the evaluation path to drill down and grant you access. You don't need to be assigned anywhere in the structure to use this one. The other one here, display, is another form of fixed structural profile. It actually have no indication of ID, it just grants you access to the object types. So you have all object types. From a performance point of view, this is really, really efficient. But it's just grants you access to all organizational units or all positions, all jobs, etc. Yep. The evaluation paths is quite essential for the structural authorizations. You can set them up in this transaction 008W, and when you're setting them up, please avoid recursions. They will mess up the structural authorizations. You can also create one evaluation path per structural profile. It makes it transparent. It gives you an enhanced flexibility for maintaining specific structural profiles without having an impact on others. Then you can also, before you are using those evaluation paths for your structural profiles, you can test them in a transaction called PPSS. So you can actually see if they are granting access to those objects you want them to grant access to. So let's try to have a look at it. So in this case, I have the PPSS, and I want to access my structure, but now I can see, oops, I'm having a loop going from position to job, back to position, back to job, etc., etc. So this is not good, and we actually had to see the error in the evaluation path, so OAW. And then we'll go to where I have where I can maintain my evaluation paths. And see here I have this one, recursion. And I will show you what happens. It goes through the organization structure, it finds the positions, goes to the jobs, it goes from job back to position, and then it loops. So this is not good. So when you're setting up those evaluation paths, please keep them clean. Try to avoid repeating object types in those evaluation paths. Yes, you need to be in control of your structural profiles. So when you are creating them, please keep in mind that they are easy to use in production and align them with your business roles. Don't just create one after the other, because it will create redundant profiles, and it will end up with like an unstructured patchwork. So please keep them true to your concept, whether it's a one-to-one or where you are reusing the structural profiles. Make sure to document what you're doing, and make sure that you are actually telling others what is the purpose of this structural profile. Because you might not be there when they are live. So it's really, really important to have knowledge, also considering that there's a lot of authorization consultants and user administration supporters who don't have knowledge about structural authorizations. Also, from the other point, remember to describe in the PFCG rules if they need access from structural profiles, and then also describe which structural profiles they are using. That's just worth remembering. Then we have the prerequisites for using structural profiles. Yes, integration between PA and OM is switched on, otherwise it will not work. Also, when you're having, this is mostly for terminated employees, but when they are terminated, they should remain assigned to the old organizational unit they came from, because then you will actually be able to access them. In some cases, we have hourly employees, which is not part of the structure. And to access those employees, you can either create your own function module, which grabs them based on, for example, employee subgroup, or you can actually also grant access through the structural profile all. The function module is absolutely preferred, because this will you will then remain structural control. Then we have this default position regarding the terminated employees, the 99999 position. It's used for terminated employees, and as long as you keep them assigned to an organizational unit, you'll be able to access them from a structural point of view. The structural authorization setup for default position can be customized, and you have different kind of options. I just mentioned two, there's actually four. But one is to grant access to employees on the default positions who is outside the structure, or delimit them from granting access. This is actually two options. I'll just show you here. In this case, we have the employee who has been terminated. We have two action in this case. I could be more, but I just show you that we have a hiring action, and then we have a leaving action. And it's actually the info type 1 which I'm interested in regarding the leaving action, which we have here, the organizational assignment. And then we'll be able to see that this employee is actually on the default position, but look at this one. There's still an organizational unit assigned to this employee, despite his actually terminated. This one secures the structural access for our employee. So keep this one. Then I will show you where you can customize the default position. It's OOAC, and you will actually see here we have all the settings, the main switches for the HR authorization. We have structural authorization check is switched on. We have the incon, this is for PORG incon, switched on. And then we have here the DEFCON. And here we have 4 different kind of options where you have to consider this before you are going live. It has a significant impact on our structural profiles. Let's go back to the presentation. You can actually index the structural profiles instead of letting the system drilling down in the relation database each time that you are meeting an authorization structural check. In large HCM setups, this might be required. And you can actually handle it, either it is a reduced amount of users who is going to be indexed, or all of them. Normally I would take either or, all on the nobody. The pros for using this one is actually the performance increase, and it's actually really, really good. It works. And the cons, yes, you don't have access to online newly created objects. So if you have a newly created, it could be position, organizational unit, it could be also a course based on course type, you will not have access to them before the index has been regenerated. I will just show you how to generate the index. We have two transactions here. We have this one. This is the first one, which actually puts the user into a table called T77UU, which will tell the system that we need to build an index. In this case, you can see that we have the user who is fulfilling the criteria. Now I put a test mark on, so it will not enter him, as you can see. And when this user has been entered to T77UU, we can actually run this report where you are building up the index. It's also called RH-BAUS00. When you have done this, then it's time for testing. I showed the PPSS. There's also PPMDT, the old version of Manager Self-Service. Then you have SU53. You have the trace. The trace is not really useful, but this one, HR Auth, this transaction is brilliant. Brilliant. It really shows you all kind of issues and what is set up within HR authorizations. I will actually create another session for this one. Then we have OSB. In this one, you also have an option for seeing the structural profiles assigned to the users and see which objects is actually assigned. There's a small functionality inside this transactions you can use. Yep, that was the session. Thank you for listening. And we will be back